Fennell from Imprint City, Jack Thomas from Alemany Farms, and Patrick Rump from Literary for Environmental Justice. Thank you guys all for being here. And we've got the intro activity out of the way. I think we can get started.
Great. Okay, so I take it my audio is okay. So I'm Tyra Fennell. I'm founding director of Imprint City, and our mission is to go into underutilized neighborhoods and activate them with art. This includes open spaces, any sort of underutilized blighted spaces in specific neighborhoods. We happen to be hyper-focused in the Baby Hunters Point and have been for the past 5 years. Some of our programs include the Baby Live Festival. So the Baby Live Festival provides a platform for our local merchants, provides kid-friendly, family-friendly fun, and of course highlights the neighborhood artists. And we always have a headliner every year, a headline performer every year, as well as a health and wellness space for people to get testing done, peruse fresh produce and things like that. So it's just a huge neighborhood festival with all of the aforementioned variables. We also do murals in the community on the block of the festival. We created something called the Spray View. So that's an actual photo, notwithstanding the animated people, of the block. We've basically painted the whole block with murals by about 15 different artists. We plan to add an additional mural this year with an artist named Cookie. His name is Carlos, but they call him Cookie. And he's doing an upcoming mural on a restaurant on this same block, which will totally complete the block. Every building in the block will have had a mural. And we also launched Baby Blooms about 2 years ago. My project manager, Juliana Martinez, runs this. And we basically noticed that there were a number of, thank you, Jesus. There were a number of urban gardens in Bayview that were underactivated, that were not well kept, mainly due to lack of resources. So we decided to organize them and leverage resources to beautify them and bring art to the spaces to empower the community. We held our first Baby Blooms garden crawl last year in collaboration with City of Dreams, Adam Rogers Garden, managed by Hunters Point Family, Northridge Community Garden, and Caseta Gardens. Each day we toured 2 gardens, so people were taken from one garden to the next. We provided transportation, and we reached out to seniors, adults, youth, and kids. So it was a multi-generational event. And again, we had transportation provided specifically for the senior community. Each garden held an art and wellness activity like cooking demonstration. We had Malik Senefru, who's the local, he's a Baby Hunters Point native. He did art classes, we did nutrition workshops, and we had a really great Aztec dancing group do a blessing of one of the gardens, which was really nice because it caused people to come out on their balconies and on their porches and kind of look from afar. So that was really nice. We also partnered with Linda Barbers and Pedro Gonzalez, both Baby residents, to beautify John Stewart Garden. We're just gonna roll through, you can roll through to the next slide. You'll just be seeing different images from our programs. In any case, we continue providing the gardens not only with activation, but we've helped them get more supplies. They're building greenhouses, they're doing landscaping. This is a photo of Malik Senefru teaching in the garden. And so moving forward in the coronavirus age, we're rethinking our programs to bring them online. So Baby Live, once again, we have the mural project. We have Southside Festival, which are concerts inside of merchant spaces historically, and then Baby Blooms, which I just talked about. We'll be bringing a lot of those programs online. For example, Baby Blooms, we're going to be providing cooking classes online and health and wellness activities. And both of our festivals, we're going to be, Southside Festival and Baby Live, we're going to be moving online. So we're really trying to just transition to this new coronavirus age. But in a nutshell, that's Imprint City's programs. And I guess I'll take questions at the end if anyone has them.
Cool. So I guess that brings us to Friends of Alemany Farm. I just want to say Imprint City sounds so cool, and I did not know y'all were a thing until this presentation. So I guess shout out to Friends of the Urban Forest for bringing us all together. Yeah, I'm really glad to be a part of the conversation today, and I'll give myself a brief introduction and then get into the farm after that. So I've been with the Friends of Alemany Farm since December, doing boots on the ground farm work and hosting educational work days and coordinating admin efforts to keep the farm's lights on. Before joining this team, I was the assistant farm manager at Green Gulch Farm and Zen Center in Muir Beach up in Marin County, where I studied small-scale organic market gardening for about 4 years. So on behalf of the Friends of Alemany Farm, we're really grateful to share a little bit about how we create conscious urban spaces in San Francisco. I'll talk now a little bit about the farm, and then it sounds like at the end of everyone's presentations, we'll open it up to questions. So next slide, please. In short, Alemany Farm is a grassroots nonprofit community farm. Our mission is to grow fresh food with and for marginalized communities in Southeast San Francisco, and in so doing, to sow the seeds of food security, sovereignty, and justice. We're located in the southeast corner of the city between Glen Park and the Excelsior District. It's 3.5 acres of land in total and shares a property line with 4 lanes of superhighway to the south and a Section 8 housing project to the east. So this is a historically and currently marginalized portion of town. There are 4 federally designated opportunity zones, meaning impoverished neighborhoods, within walking distance of the farm. The land we cultivate used to be an abandoned dump site, but was revived back in 2005 by a group of local guerrilla gardeners that has evolved into what is today the Friends of Alemany Farm. We work to maintain 1.5 acres of orchard and 1.5 acres of row crops. So we're growing and distributing apples, pears, plums, lemons, oranges, pineapple, guava. The list goes on for orchard crops, and then row crops would be like kales, chards, collard greens, lettuce varieties, pole beans, tomatoes, squash, peppers, potatoes, etc. So next slide, please. When we say grassroots and community, what we mean is the farm's borders are porous. The gates are always open. The labor and fruits of that labor are shared by everybody. So in this picture, for example, you can see the fence in the background, but actually there are no doors or locks on the fence. These are some kids from the neighborhood next door that saw me planting cilantro a few weeks ago, and they ran over and helped me out. Next slide. To achieve our mission of boosting food security, sovereignty, and justice, we've adopted a few core strategies, one of which is practicing and teaching regenerative agriculture. So what does regenerative agriculture mean, and what does it have to do with justice? The Portland Food Policy Council defines food justice as a food system that's inclusive, community-led, and participatory without the exploitation of people, land, or the environment. And it also identifies and acts to remove the significant structural inequities that exist within our food and economic systems. Food justice activists seek to establish healthy, resilient communities with equitable access to nourishing and culturally appropriate food. So this definition assumes that the world is a closed loop system, like a web, where what happens in one place ripples out and affects every other place. In recognition of this reality, the Friends of Alemany Farm practice and teach an environmentally sustainable method of organic agriculture called no-till. We do so in service of our community and to cultivate a future that is truly just, where everybody is well fed, where human beings and beings more than human live in safe, clean, green habitats. Our staff, youth interns, and community volunteers practice minimal tillage to keep carbon in the earth. We practice composting to return nutrients to the soil instead of using, for example, synthetic fertilizers. And we employ non-chemical methods of pest control in recognition that putting chemicals into the ground or into water or into food is the same as putting toxic chemicals into our bodies, the body of the family, and our neighbors. We hope that by modeling and teaching small-scale organic regenerative agriculture, and that is farming that returns nutrients to earth instead of endless extraction, we will promote a culture of environmental literacy and stewardship in the Bay Area. We're hopeful that others will adopt this model and that our efforts combined will reverse climate change, boost health in frontline communities, and sow seeds of a livable, just, and equitable future for everybody. Next slide. Part of the same vision involves stewarding native ecosphere on site. The second strategy we employ to accomplish of an equitable, sustainable future. We offer 2 days each month focused on creating, maintaining, and expanding native habitats on the farm, from ministering to one of the few remaining freshwater ponds in the city to planting and pruning native hedgerows. Is conscious of more than just human neighbors. And diversity on any farm or garden site. Our land, for example, is home to coyote, heron, red-winged blackbird, and many other variety of native birds, snakes, and so many kinds of insects, chief among them the bees. Maintaining biodiversity and native ecology not only provides habitat for wildlife, it also benefits the farm. With plants, animals, and their environments left intact, a range of essential services provided by nature are preserved. Fungi and microorganisms decompose organic matter, transferring nutrients to the soil. Ants and other insects control pest populations. Bees, butterflies, birds, and bats pollinate fruit trees. Swamps and marshes filter out pollutants, and trees prevent flooding and reduce erosion. On top of all of that, we recognize that Alemany Farm is also a green refuge for urban residents to take a break from the concrete cityscape and immerse themselves in the cathartic sights, sounds, and smells of nature. The importance of exposure to natural greenery is especially important for kids. If we hope to raise the next generation with a deep love and appreciation for Mother Earth, they need to grow up in closer relationship with her. Next slide. Friends of Alemany Farm want to both teach a man to fish while straight up feeding him and her and them. The point is, there are folks who are hungry now who don't have the means to grow their own food and may never have that luxury. What is so radical about the Friends is that we reject the traditional capitalist economic model that by design disadvantages most of us, but especially disadvantages Black, Brown, Indigenous, people of color among us. To boost food security, we put our greens where your mouth is. Each year, we grow and give away at no cost about 25,000 pounds of organic fruits and vegetables to volunteers, to our neighbors at the Alemania Apartments food pantry, which is pictured here. We're there every Friday, and to low-income city residents at the free farm stand every Sunday, and that's at Parque Niños Unidos in the city, in the Mission. Next slide. And as I said before, we never lock our gates. So all produce in the trees and in the fields are offered freely for community harvesting day or night. Next slide. Alemany Farm is 100% a community project. Under usual circumstances before COVID-19, we hosted between 40 and 50 volunteers every weekend. Last year, we saw about 17,000 volunteers on site, making us second only to Golden Gate Park in terms of volunteer activity. And I think this is an interesting statistic. Golden Gate Park is more than 300 times the size of Alemany Farm. So now, a skeleton crew of about 4 farm staff members are hustling to maintain usual farm operations, but we express our mission most fully when you're on site with us, learning how to sow seeds, prepare beds, make compost, plant crops, and harvest produce. Next. We usually say at the end of work days something like, without you, there is no farm. Y'all do the work, you eat the food, and you pay the bills. As a nonprofit that gives away the literal fruits of its labor for free, we rely on San Francisco's financial generosity to cover operating expenses. We ask for charitable contributions when people of means see value in the farm's mission, and we host paid corporate workdays to keep the lights on. Finally, there's a saying among food justice advocates that goes, if you can feed yourself, you can free yourself. Since COVID-19 began, grocery store shelves have been swept clean. Food insecurity is spiking across the nation, including in our own city. And a lot of folks are hungry, especially people that are already struggling to access nutritious local foods on a predictable basis. Having the skills, the tools, and the time to grow your own food is a luxury. And the Friends of Alemany Farm are committed to building a bridge over the financial barriers to entry into the garden of self-sustenance. As I said before, we want to do more than just give people healthy local food now. We want to teach people to fish. So we offer about 20 free and low-cost workshops each year and ask folks to pay on a sliding scale where they're able. We run a quarterly internship program aimed at local transitional aged youth. And next slide, we offer a monthly gardening class at the next door Head Start preschool pictured above. Now, in response to COVID-19, we're offering a few educational webinars each month focused on gardening from home. Last slide. We're partnering with Edgar Sochi, the farm manager at Hummingbird Farm in the Excelsior District, to offer a virtual propagation workshop at the end of this month. And in early June, we're hosting a conversation with farm elder and fairy godmother of Bay Area organic gardening, Wendy Johnson, who is a Buddhist teacher and author of an award-winning horticultural memoir called Gardening at the Dragon's Gate. If you're interested in attending these workshops or getting involved on site in the future, the best thing to do right now is to subscribe to our email list, which you can find on our website listed on this slide. You can also follow us on our Instagram feed. We post all of the webinar information there. We'll also let you know when the farm reopens to the public for service learning days. And in the meantime, keep your eyes peeled for the workshop at the end of May and in June. Finally, I want to say thank you to the Friends of the Urban Forest team for sharing your platform with us. We're looking forward to finding ways to collaborate and create community with each of the viewers, as well as all the organizations presenting here today. Let's stay in touch and help each other thrive. Thank you so much.
Hey, that was amazing. It was really cool I'm Patrick Marley Rump, Executive Director of Literacy for Environmental Justice. It was just really great to hear more about Imprint City, to be a part of this panel. I've been going out to Alemany Farm since it was the slug farm back in the early 2000s. And it's just amazing to see the work progress and to be a part of this panel. So next slide, please. Literacy for Environmental Justice works around 4 different strategies. Our work is place-based. We're in the Bayview Hunters Point. We've been around since 1998. I've had the pleasure of being a field educator, naturalist, executive director now for 20 of those years, and truly blessed to see transformation of some really amazing open spaces and places that are really sacred to all of us. Our core strategies are ecological restoration, community stewardship, service learning, and youth development. I find like when we're really doing our work at our best, you could see all 4 of these strategies in play like on the same day. There's a lot of cross-pollination between our work. Up at the top is kind of like really like the heart of what we're trying to do is we're really trying to get people connected to our urban open spaces, really trying to see the connection between human health and the health of our environment, and seeing that strengthening of the ecological community and the strengthening of human communities as interdependent. Go to the next slide, please. I'm going to share some of the projects that we've been a part of over the last 20 years. This is a really interesting one. This is the rooftop of the Eco Center at Herons Head Park. And I think it really embodies this idea of, this is a rooftop, but it's also like a living habitat with biodiversity. It's also providing an ecosystem service such as flood control and temperature regulation. And it's seamlessly in balance with the surrounding landscape, which is also ecological restoration of a former landfill, and also one of the most beautiful places, I think, in San Francisco. In the distance there's a restored tidal wetland habitat, one of the few tidal wetlands left in San Francisco. Heron's Head Park was built in the late 90s in the shadow of the PG&E PowerPoint that had been there for, I think, like 70 years. And it was the largest source of stationary air pollution in the community. And to see this park go from a dump to a thriving wetland and now like an environmental education center has been really, truly remarkable. Go to the next slide. This is the Eco Center itself. This is kind of like what I was talking about, like workforce development. Charles in the gray is one of our interns. The other three people, I don't remember their names, but they're out on a City College permaculture or sustainability class. And we're engaging them in the ecological function of that building's wastewater treatment. So they're actually putting in native plants that treat the wastewater as it is pumped through the facility. So truly a unique place. That's one of the places that we've been able to kind of combine lots of sustainability ideas with community interaction and community gathering. I think with all these collaborative projects, it's really cool to see that they live on sometimes beyond who started them. And the Eco Center it's been in 3 different program entities. Currently, it's with Rec and Park. Ledge got it started, but we found that it was, not financially sustainable. But it was, so we moved on. I'll go to the next slide. A project that's really kept us busy over the last like 5 or 6 years is Candlestick Point State Recreation Area. This is Sunrise Point with Bayview Hill in the background. In front of Bayview Hill is where the former Candlestick Stadium is. Just kind of wanted to show like the context. This has been where we recently, go to the next slide, please, built walk-in, boat-in, and hike-in camping spots in San Francisco. We're one of only 2 campsites in the entire county. And for $35 a night, after COVID is all over, you can go and camp on the waterfront in an urban setting. Some of the other features that this project include are 2.5 acres of ecological restoration. We planted over 10,000 native plants that were locally grown by local people on this site. We put in some of the first interpretive panels in the park in over 20 years. And we're not finished with the project, but that thing that kind of looks like a ramp at the top is a future kayak launch. And at the very tip, we're hoping to put in an amphitheater with a fire pit so that as groups utilize this site, they can do group camping. Go to the next slide. I wanted to share this. One of the things that's really interesting about placemaking is a lot of times there's these untold stories. So this project provided an opportunity to tell about the environmental justice history of Candlestick Point State Recreation as California's first urban state park. And I think it's very cool. This is like probably one of the only panels in on public open space that I've heard the word environmental justice used. So we're really proud of that. The woman up in the top right is Carol Nelson, California State Park's first African-American supervising ranger who was stationed at Candlestick in the 70s and 80s. So a lot of people don't know this history. So this was an opportunity to kind of like, to bring that story to life. Next slide, please. This was also an opportunity for us to open up San Francisco Bay to a new generation of residents. I find it ironic that it's called the Bayview and there's very little access to the actual bay. Which is the largest open space in the Bay Area is the bay itself. So this is our eco adventure programs that we host out there. Go to the next slide. So current project, actually this is another one of the projects that we've been involved in at Candlestick as well. This is the Candlestick Community Garden. We got involved out here in like 2004. You can see there's 48 garden plots. When we got involved, only 4 of them were actually usable. The fences were falling over, the site was dumped. Over the last decade, we've turned this into a hub of community programming for workforce development programs. We've improved community access to the garden. We've built a native plant nursery, which is that structure in the background. To date, this nursery has hosted like 25,000 people and has grown over 250,000 native plants for local ecological restoration and urban greening projects. Next slide, please. And the work isn't done. So one of the things that was really cool about beginning this project at Candlestick was when the park went through its recent general plan process, they listened to the community, and one of the things that our youth from our Ledges program said is like, why don't we expand the garden? Why don't we have an opportunity to camp at our state park? So both of those ideas made it into the state park's new general plan. And I'm excited to announce, even with COVID, we're going to be able to break ground on a doubling of the space. It'll add another 24 community garden plots. It'll add 75,000 gallons of water recharge and 15,000 gallons of reuse. And on the right side of the screen, we'll be actually quadrupling our native plant production on site, which is essential to our workforce education programming and ecological stewardship programs that serve Candlestick and the greater area. We really want to get people involved. We expect the Public Works project to get underway in September. And at the conclusion of that, and hopefully the COVID epidemic, we want to invite the public in to build out this space, to help us build the community garden plots, to fill them with soil, to replant them, to replant the bioswales and the native plant habitats that are demonstration gardens, and to really commence this space because we feel like it's a community space, and that's why we're doing it. And with all the projects that I shared, they really were community efforts. They really were collaborative projects. And I think that there's a lot of, I don't know, just like opportunity there. So the next slide, please. So as we were kind of thinking about like the last 20 years and some of the projects we did, my staff and our interns did a word cloud just kind of talking about what core values all of these sites bring. And I think during COVID-19, it was really interesting that like healing and nature were like some of the ones that came up first. And I just really want to like, I think my call to action right now, next slide, please, is come visit these sites, get out of your house, go see Heron's Head. When the Eco Center's open, please book a tour. When the Candlestick campsites are open, contact Ledge or go camping on your own. And in the meantime, people can donate to Ledge. Our staff are out doing the work in the park that our volunteers can't do right now. We're really thankful to be able to do those activities, but we need you back when public programs resume. And we are basically pulling the call of action to have you all come back and participate in our work because it's an ongoing legacy that we're all a part of. So honored to be here, and I just wanted to wrap things up and say thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. And thank you, Jack and Tyra as well. Those are all awesome presentations, and just love hearing all the great work you guys are doing. I'm super inspired. I'm gonna keep my portion of this brief. I'd like to open up the chat into Q&A as soon as possible. But just to kind of also give an overview of Friends of the Urban Forest, I'll reintroduce myself again. I'm Jesus Lozano, Community Engagement Coordinator here, and Friends of the Urban Forest. Our mission is to bring neighbors together to plant and care for our city's ideal urban forest, and we do that through a variety of efforts, including our tree planting program, our tree care program, our sidewalk gardening program, our workforce development program, and as well as a different education program for workforce development of transitional youth as well. And we do that with the hope of creating as equitable an urban forest as we can. We've been lucky enough to work with some of our partners presenting here today in the past to provide native plants for our sidewalk gardens that we build around the city, and hope to further those collaborative efforts even more as we go, because we do get to play in this like super community space right in front of our own homes, and it's really important for us to be able to continue fostering this connection in nature, from even if you can't get further than just the tree in front of your own home. Yeah. And sorry. Our organization, having been around since 1981, we've gotten to be a number of things over the years. At first, only being able to help facilitate and subsidize tree planting in the sidewalks when the city was no longer funding that, and more recently advocating for the urban forest, making sure that the trees are cared for, and today really we've been able to get funding to plant trees for free all over the city, and make sure that those trees are cared for while they're establishing, and even further into their maturity, that there will always be cared for, watered, pruned, making sure that they become a legacy for the city, because as our city has grown, our urban forest hasn't grown as much with us, and even for a lot of other major cities around the country, we have a pretty low canopy coverage, and as well as open sidewalk space. So it's become really important that we learn to involve everyone in our communities to build the sidewalk gardens, to build the community gardens, to plant trees everywhere that we can, to help bring everyone the benefits of a very healthy urban forest. Yeah, that's, I really want to keep mine brief, so I think we can open over to the Q&A now, and I'm going to, this is a question open to all of our panelists. Our first question is just how can our communities help you right now in this time of the pandemic?
This is Tyra from Imprint City. I think the first thing is obviously all nonprofits need funding. So if you're able during this difficult time to donate to any of the nonprofits that are in this panel, or frankly, any nonprofit that you feel connection to, please do that. Secondly, I noticed while we're on the panel, I'm on Instagram sharing Alemany Farms, Alemany sharing my posts. Social media is very important because it's a way to advertise what we do. So if you are watching this, for example, and you want to share a screenshot or share information about our organizations via your social media, that's really great as well. Also, a number of us work with volunteers. So if you don't have the bandwidth to donate monetarily, you can always donate your time, your talent. And I'm sure any of these organizations on the panel could use volunteers and people with specialized skill sets.
I think that was really well said, and I wouldn't change anything. I actually have nothing to add. I'll just like sparkle my fingers at Tyra and say rehash. Alemany Farm needs donations. We need volunteers, and please interact with us on social media because that's how most people can engage with us right now. So thank you, Tyra.
I would say I would echo those same sentiments. You know, it's like an uphill battle just to keep the lights on. And then you throw in something like this, it adds a lot of uncertainty to a nonprofit. I would say, I would add one thing. I think it's really important if you have the power to get youth outdoors, even if it's not in a school setting. But you know, I can just see a huge difference in my kids and myself as I'm like continuing to walk down the street, go to the beach, go to places like Candlestick. I feel one way that we've been able to directly serve our youth interns is luckily our project has been deemed an essential business because we're growing 70,000 plants for public infrastructure projects right now. And so the overwhelming thing, our transitional age youth who are from our community, who are working at our nurseries, both at Treasure Island and Candlestick, have said that like, they're just amazed that they have a job and that they're outside, and it's just, it's creating such a calming and settling piece of medicine in their life right now. So I think getting outdoors is essential right now. And I think supporting nonprofits that support youth is also really important. So thanks.
I'll answer for Fuff as well. Again, echoing what you three have said, awesome responses to that question. I think the only other thing that I could add for our organization is helping us reach your neighbors, whether that be posting your social medias or writing letters, or however you think right now would be good to safely contact the people in your immediate community, so that to help get tree requests, to help get more volunteers, and when we can come back and have public events, so that we're all able to hit the ground running and really be ready to continue this important work that we're all very, very happy to be involved in. With that, I'm going to start asking questions that I've been receiving from the chat. The first one is, what has been the biggest reward in serving your community? I'll open that for
I
any.
mean, I would start, but I started the last time, so, you know. Okay, I guess I will start. So we specialize in empowering artists that largely public funding overlooks. You know, we work in an historically Black community. A lot of the artists in Hunters Point are rappers, singers. They're in hip hop genre, things that, you know, grants for the arts would normally fund, or the people that perform this art form would normally know how to navigate the grant system. So what we do is we secure grants and we pay a lot of the artists in the neighborhood that are extremely talented. And it's very rewarding seeing them on the stage with, you know, big name headliners like Talib Kweli or Busta Rhymes. And so that's been the biggest reward, just to see some of the youth, young people in the community given a platform to perform and being paid a fair wage to do so. We pay all of our artists. No one volunteers, no one gets a stipend, we pay. So that's been really rewarding.
Jack or Patrick?
I'll go. Man, there's way too many of them. I think when I started working at Ledge, I was, when I first started interning at Ledge, I learned about Heron's Head. I was working for the National Park Service, and I was, restoring these beautiful habitats in Marin, and I was living in Bayview, and I just was like, this is so inequitable. And to see the transformation that has taken place at places like Heron's Head, the Eco Center, the community garden, Yosemite Slough, and now Sunrise Point, that's been the biggest thing. And I've had the luxury of being kind of an old fart at this point, because I've been around for like 20 years. I've seen that transformation manifest. I've recently hired a program coordinator who came to a Heron's Head program in 8th grade 10 years ago, and then decided to study ecology and went to UC Davis and came back to Viz Valley and looked us up. And just to see that full cycle, and to see that there is transformative change happening. I'd say also too, with all the changes in the Bayview community, knowing that some of the work that we've done is community driven, and it's not being driven by redevelopment. It's not green gentrification. These are ideas that were born out of listening to the community and taking a risk to make things happen as a nonprofit. So seeing some of that become real has been truly transformative for me, and ultimately rewarding, and it's kept me here. So that would be it for me.
My answer to this is cheesy. I would say what's been rewarding about this work, maybe on an organizational level, but also speaking personally, is watching families walk to the farm and harvest. That for me, or even actually just taking a break under the willow tree on a Friday afternoon, kids playing hide and seek with their dad. He's teaching, there's this one family that comes regularly, and they're doing school lessons outside. Witnessing folks take advantage of a green space nearby. I know how much I've appreciated having an outdoor space to go, and a good reason to go there, a few times a week. I also feel really lucky that this is my job. I have to get out. And I know how much it's helped me stay in my body, relaxed, to find some kind of equilibrium, or regulate down in this really weird time. So I'm just kind of imagining the same things going on for the folks that are availing themselves of this green space, and to be part of a team that's stewarding that space is really rewarding. And then on a more personal level, just speaking for myself outside of Alemany, just interacting with plant life is really moving me lately. I feel so inspired and woken up to the world by sowing seeds, planting them out, nurturing them through a life cycle, and then harvesting on this, but just picking a carrot and eating it. And it feels like it took years for me to realize how miraculous it is. I just didn't understand plants or food, but to be up close and watching the process, I'm just appreciating what Patrick said about encouraging folks, especially young kids, to get outside. I would tack on and say getting some seeds into soil and nurturing something and being nourished by it is very rewarding, and I think essential.
Thank you. And mine is pretty cheesy too, honestly. I've been with for a little over a year now also, and really the amazing thing to see is on a Saturday when we do our plantings is there's like no trees on the street, and at the end of the day, not only are there trees planted, but we're having our potluck at the end of the afternoon. Neighbors that have never met each other are getting to introduce themselves to each other, getting to share food, and really just getting to enjoy this kind of newfound community space, something that's been brought back to life. And working with some of our neighborhood organizers that do a lot of outreach to their neighbors all around the year, just as volunteer work. It's cool to see and visit them and see that they've in some neighborhoods where it might be hard to get everyone to want a tree in front of their home, to see that they've accomplished greening their entire block, their entire street even sometimes, and knowing that years from now, though we might not be able to even stand underneath those trees, that tree will be fully shaded one day, and that those kinds of efforts are working, even if it takes a little while longer. It's working, and we're gonna get to see it come to full fruition, maybe even in our lifetimes, which is super amazing. Our next question I want to open up is, what is a vision of your community that your org would like to see as a reality within the next 5 years?
So this is Tyra again. I guess we'll go in a row. So a few years ago, when Supervisor Malia Cohen was in office, I co-authored the legislation for Bayview becoming a designated African American Arts and Cultural District. And the idea behind that was to codify all the arts and culture efforts in the neighborhood, back them up with significant amount of funding through hotel tax money, which we kind of think is in the crapper now, but we're being cautiously optimistic that we will still get something. And we joined the 9 other cultural districts in the city, like Cali 24, Calle 24, Mission, in the Mission, the LGBT cultural district, so forth and so on. And so that was a big deal, because even though Imprint City is doing great work in the art space and supporting the artists, the urban gardens, things like that, it's nice to have a solid bed of funding to sort of organize all of the arts and culture and uplift the community through the cultural district. So our hope is that in 5 years, we could utilize some of that money to market the neighborhood, to bring people there to enjoy all the cultural assets, and as a byproduct, also support the local economy, which is very important, the local businesses, so forth and so on.
I can go next, and I have 2 thoughts about this. One is sort of a generic answer that I don't think is satisfying, and then the second one is like a little more honest. So the generic answer is, we see folks growing their own food because they have the skills, they've accessed our educational programming either online or when the world opens up on the site. You know, whether that means that they're growing and harvesting food at Alemany with us, or they have the skills and the means to do it in their own yard or in a community plot. That would be a goal, to see more and more people feeding themselves. I think the more satisfying and the more grounded answer right now is that it's a big question mark for our organization. We're at an inflection point as a nonprofit where we're hearing a lot of requests from the community to grow and expand in a lot of different ways, and we're not sure in what direction to take it. And so really, I think my impulse is to turn the question around and say, we have work to do to reach out to the community, establish partnerships, build more relationships with the people in the southeast of San Francisco, and ask them, you know, this is your farm. What do you want from it? What do you need from it? And then we'll do the work to build that and in response. But it's this question is a question that we hold in a big way, and I think it will only reveal itself in time. So thanks for raising it.
Oh, wow. Very cool stuff. I hope to be around in 5 years. So I think for me, personally, Candlestick is a really special place, and reflecting back on the history of that park and the community struggle to transform it from a dump into California's first urban state park, and to see that that is like largely unfinished 35 years later, is something that I want to see get to the finish line. I would love to see the parks plan implemented through workforce development, through community engagement. Part of our nursery expansion is to be able to create the facility that can grow the 1 million plants that the 100 acres of revegetation and regrading of Candlestick will need. And I would like to see it happen before the development at large at the Hunters Point Shipyard and the Candlestick development change the character of that area permanently. So I really want to see, I don't know, I've also seen state parks do a really poor job at working with the local community, and a poor job of maintaining that park. So I think it's time to, for me personally, that's what I would, you know, I want to carry on that vision of the park from 30 years ago and see it to the finish line. I think a big part of that vision is also like preparing for the next disaster, which I think is sea level rise, climate change. And I do think that natural systems are going to play a really big part in the community's resiliency. And in a perfect world, I would love to see the opportunity to make our shorelines and our parks more resilient as workforce opportunities that also lead to greater inclusion in the environmental field, which is pretty vanilla, but has a long way to come. And so those are things that I really hope the next 5 years start to really cement the work that was before us, so that the work can continue going forward.
Awesome. And for us, I think it's an interesting question for our organization, since we are in many of San Francisco's communities throughout the year, and I think that's something very lucky that we get to work in a lot of different neighborhoods, and really it's the main goal being to get as many trees in the ground as possible, to see the canopy grow, to, like you said, to combat the impending problem of climate change, to help create more community resistance, even tree by tree. But further than that, I think something that we hold very near to our hearts is to help facilitate communities taking over the spaces that they live in, to make sure that they feel that they are at home, that the trees in the street do belong to them. And I think that's something that all of our organizations share, that their food systems belong to them, that their open spaces belong to them, that their art belongs to them. And I think seeing partnerships, I think right now, however small, grow, and so that we can kind of get to work together to make all of our common goal of creating this more homely San Francisco a very real possibility. And that might be more than 5 years, but I think there's a lot of work we can do in the next 5 years, and I'm super excited to be a part of that. I think we are right about getting close to time. Yep, we're there. If you're still with us, I just wanted to say thank you for everyone that came. Thank you to our panelists. Thank you so much. I get to end the week super inspired. And if you will bear with us one more time, if you have a piece of paper and a writing utensil, please write a new word that makes you think of shared conscious community spaces. And we'll do this activity one more time just to close out. So yeah, what word do you have for conscious community spaces? And if everyone, I think there's about 18 of you with your camera off, of you to turn your camera back on just for a brief moment. We'd really appreciate that. Awesome. All right. I see you, Mark. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Do we have the screenshot? Yeah, we do? Awesome. Again, thank you guys for coming so much. This is really makes me really happy to see this much of our community kind of involved and present here today, just even to hear us out. If there's any final remarks, I think this is the end of our webinar. But if there's any last things you'd like to say, please do. Jack, Tyra, or Patrick.
I just wanted to say thanks. This is like, I'm a total Luddite. I've spent my whole professional career staying away from technology and growing plants and being outdoors and, you know, bringing people outdoors. So it was really, this was like totally transformative for me to do this Zoom thing. And I really appreciate everyone putting it together and can't wait to be seeing you all out in the parks.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah,
I'm excited
thank you.
to be back out.
Hi, thank you.
Thanks. Thank you, everyone, one more time. Just want to appreciate you guys, and
Thanks, panelists.
hope we could do something like this again.
All right, bye, guys.
Bye.